Last February, Elden Ring took the world by storm. It's a huge and beautiful open world to conquer, with more diversity and depth than any other game before it. So many people got drawn into this new world, many of those who had never played any FromSoft games before. You get to ride a horse, hug a woman, make all the stars fall out of the sky, and clean yourself with a bar of soap, none of which you could do in previous games. However, there was something that did come over from previous games. FromSoftware's unique take on player versus player combat. Many hate it, some tolerate it, even fewer, I would dare say, love it. If you're one of those chosen few, then I've got something you may be interested in seeing. So strap in, you baby invaders and duelists, this is just for you. Now, this certainly doesn't cover every reason why you should try Dark Souls 3 PvP, but here are 5 reasons that I personally would like to share with you. So we'll start with reason number 1. The 6-player limit and Covenant areas. Elden Ring lacks specific areas where certain Covenants can defend their territory. We have 2 of these areas in Dark Souls 3, in Farron's Swamp and in Pontiff's Courtyard. Due to the 6-player limit, this basically means that 3 friendlies and 3 invaders can duke it out at the same time. These areas are one of the biggest reasons why I personally had so much fun in Dark Souls 3. You can just go in there with your friends, use a dried finger, and go crazy. At popular levels, you'll basically never run out of invaders to fight. I'd recommend trying this at soul level 20 plus 2, or 30 plus 3 in the Swamp, and soul level 70 plus 7, or 90 plus 10 if you're in Pontiff. Since you're new, I really wouldn't recommend going above 90 at Pontiff for now. It would be a rather frustrating time for you getting backstabbed constantly. And speaking of backstabs, that leads me to number 2. Backstabs work, and they're sexy. See, in Elden Ring, backstabs are not exactly a reliable strategic maneuver. Most of the time, they're just a good way to get you blendered to death if you try to go for one. Even if you do pull one off, it never seems to be worth it for the trouble you had to go through to land it, and you get this ugly bouncy animation. In Dark Souls 3, backstabs work slightly different. Both games use a similar mechanic to check and see if your inputs line up in such a way that'll end up in you thrusting your opponent's bum. But, without getting too far into that, Dark Souls 3's version is much more forgiving in how it performs this. Backstabs still aren't just plain easy to grab like in Dark Souls 1, but they're definitely a viable combat option that can aid in turning the tables on your opponent. Backstabs in Dark Souls 3 are something any build can use to their advantage, whereas in Elden Ring it just feels like a waste of time. In Dark Souls 3 we have a ring called Hornet Ring that increases the amount of damage done by critical hits. Elden Ring has a very similar item called the Dagger Talisman, but there's just one small difference in the way they operate. When you equip the Dagger Talisman in Elden Ring, you do get increased damage, but you still get the ugly rubber band style backstab animation. In Dark Souls 3, however, when you equip the Hornet Ring, you get this sexy new animation that just feels good deep down when you land one. This does give you slightly different timing for when your opponent is getting back up as well, a perfect opportunity to put some combos to use. Which brings us to number 3. Combo potential. Combos, combos, and more combos. Dark Souls 3 is chock full of different weapons, weapon arts, spells, and other items that are capable of what we call true combos. This just means by performing certain inputs with your certain gear, your hits will not be able to be rolled out of. For example, watch this attack using Gale's Greatsword. My R1 true combos into an L2, and finally an R1 for massive damage. My opponent could not roll out of this attack. This is something that I both love and hate about Dark Souls 3. On one hand, it gives you the ability to know what works 100% and plan your attacks accordingly to hopefully end up with a dub. On the other hand, it can get really monotonous and boring. At this point in the game's life, there have been hundreds and hundreds of videos put out by popular content creators showing how powerful these combos can be. Pretty much everyone knows at least a few of these, and everyone will be trying to use them against you naturally. Find a good player with a passive playstyle and a straight sword, and boredom will kill you if chip damage from his Dark Infusion doesn't first. But there's much more to this game's combo potential than just Gale's Greatsword and straight swords. Like using different offhand weapons to complement your main hand weapons. This ties in with combo potential, but one can use this to great lengths, and I feel like it's worthy of its own section. A community favorite setup is what's commonly referred to as offstock, It's where you pair your main hand straight sword or great sword with an offhand S-stock. Yes, the good old trusty S-stock is in this game too. The mix-ups are unlimited when playing with this setup. He's too modest to admit it, but the reason this reached a public audience is because of a cool guy I know called I Am Amish. He's taken the time to go into depth about this setup and why it works so well on several different occasions. I'll put a link to his channel if you want to see any of those videos. Aside from off-stock, there are many more ways to try this kind of setup. So you found a reinforced club, but you feel like its reach is lacking. Find yourself a red-hilted halberd and now you have a properly effective, and maybe properly annoying, setup. Both weapons have huge stun on their R1 attacks and combo into each other no matter which one you decide to hit them with first. In my later time spent in Dark Souls 3, I used setups like this very often because I felt it spiced up the combat and allowed me to use some weapons that I wouldn't normally try. And dare I say I ended up with some quality kills. Quality. Oh yeah, number 5. Quality builds don't suck in Dark Souls 3. I love Elden Ring. I do. But man, quality builds kinda got shafted. Despite the game having a few decent quality weapons to choose from, they all get overshadowed by pretty much every other build that uses popular weapons like Moonveil, Vike's Spear, Guts Greatsword, and the like. Not the case in Dark Souls 3. You have access to some of the game's most powerful and fun to use weapons, like Gale's Greatsword, the Black Knight weapons, Hollow Slayer Greatsword, and the Ring Knight Straightsword. Many hours I spent wombo comboing hosts with the Black Knight Great Axe, or literally spamming R1 with Hollow Slayer Greatsword until somebody died. If you're thinking about buying Dark Souls 3 after playing through Elden Ring, you should by all means give a quality build a try, you won't be disappointed. So that'll pretty much wrap this little video into a 5-layer FromSoft burrito. I hope you enjoyed this and it made you want to give Dark Souls 3 a try. I mean this wholeheartedly when I say it. Dark Souls 3 became a huge part of my day-to-day life, and I made some long-lasting friendships because of it. I was able to create a community, and I was able to have something in common with people from all over the world even if we didn't speak the same language. It's a game that will always be near and dear to me, and I can't thank the people that stuck around enough for the opportunity to get to know them. Y'all are the real ones. Take care everyone, I'll see you soon.